Hi, this is Shelley Kraft. We're coming to you live on SNN Live. We're at the Cambridge House International Summer Conference here in Vancouver 2012. I have with me Mr. Chris Berry, House Mountain Partners, featured speaker at Cambridge House, and let me tell you, a raconteur and a moderator of panels. Chris, welcome to SNN Live again.
Thank you for that kind introduction. I've definitely been called worse.
Well, let's talk about it. Here we are at a strange time in the market. I've used that word before, but this particularly has quotation marks around it. So let's start out first by saying, nice to have you, and what did you speak about when you were addressing your full room audience?
Thank you. Well, there were a couple of different things. I spoke earlier this morning about where we are in the strategic metals cycle specifically and how to profit going forward. So, you know, strategic metals is a whole ball of wax. I mean, you could spend just half an hour on graphite or uranium, for example. And so what I decided to do was spend a few minutes on graphite and talk about where we are in the cycle and how to interpret the space and companies going forward. And I did the same thing for uranium, and I think uranium is set to move in the near future.
There's no question about the fact that there's demand for both of those strategic metals. There are half a dozen or so graphite companies here, a couple of uranium companies. I find that there's not enough information out there on these graphite and uranium companies. And I don't want to hear about what happened in Japan because France uses uranium day in and day out. I know that we hear about graphite. What about graphene? That's what nobody talks about. So why don't you take a shot at giving me an update on the uranium market and an update on both graphite and graphene, if you might.
Thank you. Okay, well, to start with uranium, obviously Fukushima put the industry on its heels, and so one of the reasons why I like uranium is because it's ubiquitous. And when I speak about uranium, what I'm really talking about is nuclear energy and nuclear power. You've got 436 nuclear reactors that are operating globally right now, and that is set to increase by leaps and bounds, not just on China. I mean, everybody's focused on China and the growth there, but other countries as well, like Saudi Arabia, which are all going nuclear because the need for cheap and reliable and affordable electricity is of paramount importance to any government out there, and that's why you see the Chinese and these other countries going towards nuclear. So the technology is changing quickly, and people have realized that, you know what, hydrocarbons are a finite supply and resource, and that's why nuclear is going to make a comeback. Now,
hit on graphite and graphene.
Okay, graphite, obviously, some people would call it the flavor of the month over the last year or so. I have an index that I track, and it's got 50 companies in it right now that are either early stage exploration or close to bankable feasibility, but nevertheless, they're all listed either in Canada or here in Australia, and so the idea here is that you've seen this huge rush into the space. There is not room for 50 companies. There's probably only room for a couple going forward. So I think investors need to be particularly careful about where they invest at the space and at this point in the cycle, and really know as much as they can about the composition of the deposit, because it's the composition of the deposit that really determines the economics.
And you also emceed a panel.
I did.
And in emceeing that panel, you had a topic that was really tough.
Yes.
You want to tell a little bit about that?
Well, the topic was sort of a very broad one. It was graphite and strategic metals, which means different things to different people. So Jeb Handwerger was on the panel along with Lawrence Rolston, and John Kaiser was there as well. Mickey Fulp was scheduled to be, but couldn't make it due to, I think, an issue with his airplane. But nevertheless, those are the guys that I think you want to talk to in this space. And so
I got one more question.
Sure.
What about the talk that you were involved in regarding where you should invest your money?
Yeah, that was a panel that I was on yesterday, and that was a tough one. I mean, you could probably sum it up in just one sentence. I mean, just put it in your pocket or put it under your mattress. And I think that's the cop-out, though. I think now's the time to be a contrarian, whether or not you're investing in resources or other parts of the world. But, you know, I like royalty plays. I like to see cash flow. I like to see near-term cash flow. And there are plenty of opportunities out there. You just need to go and find them.
Now, for more information, where would our viewers go?
Sure. Well, my website is www.house uranium-mountain.com, and I co-author a newsletter with my father called Morning Notes, and you can subscribe to that for free at discoveryinvesting.com. And you know, we write about a lot of the themes that you and I are talking about today.
Yeah, and I got to get your father. I got to interview him because he has a Washington perspective on what's going on in the industry. And by the way, his article will be in the upcoming issue of the Micro Cap Review. So I'm plugging all the berries. I'm picking the berries.
Indeed.
And you know, let me thank you for coming on to SNN Live. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Berry, House Mountain Partners, featured speaker at all the Cambridge conferences. We're at the Cambridge House International Summer Event here in Vancouver 2012. Let me thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Absolutely.